Uh, we are recording, and I'm going to shut the one door. So I'm going to introduce Emily Rimland from the University Library. She's going to talk about Smoke That Search. And do you want me to start the screen sharing? Or?
Yeah, there's only one person online now, or on the phone. Do we need
there's...
I don't know if it's, tell them something else about calling in.
I think there is a way. I think some people are coming in over ISP.
Oh, it's just both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So her mic is working
I
on
thought
her.
they had to call in. Okay.
Yeah.
So, that's why I have a headphone, so I can hear.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't know you could do that, so
Yeah.
good to know. We do recommend the phone because sometimes Adobe Connect crashes and the phone stays online, so that's why we have that going, but if you're not close to a phone, it's still good that you can come in. I'm going to do desktop sharing,
Okay.
so it looks like it's there.
Okay. And Donnie's going to be monitoring the chat.
Yep.
And for everybody that's online, so if you have a question, feel free to type it in the chat box, and then I'll get it that way. So you can feel free to interrupt me and ask any questions along the way, and be happy to answer them. There are four of us in the room, had to count, and we have a couple people online, so we'll go ahead and get started. As Elizabeth said, my name is Emily Rimland, and I'm a librarian here at University Park campus, and I had the pleasure of working with the Educational Gaming Commons folks on the creation of a game that I use during library instruction. So I want to point out that the type of instruction that librarians do is a little bit different than what typical faculty do at Penn State. What we tend to do is what we call course-related instruction, where we have library research sessions for students that are in an existing class, like English 15 or CAS 100 or any other class where the instructor feels that they need some help with their research skills and contacts us and has us do a specialized session for the class on how to find research for their particular assignment in that class. And then we'll meet with that class once or twice to help them with that particular task. So that's the type of instruction we tend to do in the libraries. But there are credit courses and things like that that we also work with. So Smoke That Search, let me just tell you a little bit about the game just up front. This is a fast-paced, collaborative in-class game where the students work in teams. They compete for points, and the goal is for them to construct a search strategy using appropriate search operators. So that's ultimately what we ended up with. And I do want to thank Elizabeth, who helped with the creation of this game, and also Brett Bixler and Chris Stubbs from the Educational Game Commons helped with this. So a little background information, and we will get to play the game later in a couple minutes once we get through this background information. So to tell you a little bit about it, the goal was to address one of the information literacy competency standards for higher education. And there are a couple of these, and this particular game addresses standard number 2, which is about information literate students being able to access information effectively and efficiently. And if you look deeper into the details of this game, it talks about them understanding Boolean operators, being able to construct a search strategy that's efficient, being able to change their search terms, being able to select the right search terms and things like that. So this really focuses on the operator part, but it does also address the overall goal, which is to help students become information literate and to help them find information effectively and efficiently. So that was the goal. The solution we decided was to gamify this basic skill, or the learning of this skill. And so the idea of gamifying it is adding game-like elements to the learning in order to make it a little bit more active, well, definitely more active in this case, and engaging on the part of the students. So I want to to tell you a little bit about the development process. I thought this was fun. We basically started from scratch, from a real brainstorming session where we were just throwing out ideas, writing everything down, nothing was excluded, that sort of thing. And that was a lot of fun to work through that process with the EGC folks and eventually come to a game that we were really happy with and really liked. So the first attempt used cards, and I have them here with me. If you're online, obviously you can't see them, but I can pass these around.
Yeah, we can activate the camera pod if you
Okay, I'm
want
gonna
to
do
get
that.
out of the...
Do you want to do it?
That one. There, I'm going to activate my camera, which I never do.
Let's hope it works. Okay, so we're going to attempt to show you what the cards look like using the
The one camera up there.
Okay, so here is an example of one of the cards that was used in the first version. So this is a truncate.
It's not.
It's not showing?
Now
It's behind
showing.
there, okay.
It's starting to show.
So this is the truncate card, and I'll explain this more in a little bit, but truncate is one operator that you can use in a search to make your search results better. And so that's what an example of the cards look like. And so in this first version of the game, the students got 2 cards to begin with, and they could have different operators on them. This is an example. This is the OR card.
So the one side says...
OR gives you more results. So this sort of reminds them what the OR operator does. And then on the other side, it says it sort of reminds them how they can use it, and with an example. So using OR between your search terms in a search engine or a database will give you more results. But you want to use something like synonyms in order to use it effectively.
Did you want to keep sharing, or?
No, we don't need the web camera on. Okay, so that's an example of the cards used in the first version. I'll pass these around to you guys in the room if you want to take a look at them. The players got 2 at a time, and then they had to use the cards they were given on their own in front of the computer that they were sitting in front of, and kind of just try out those operators that they were given on the cards. We did 3 rounds of this, and they had the opportunity to switch cards with somebody sitting next to them or somebody else in the class. And we found that this was okay, but what was interesting was that when I ran the game in the class, it was completely quiet. Like, there was no talking. They were very engaged in it. They were doing it. They were trying it, but they just weren't talking to each other. There wasn't much of the trading going on. And so what we wanted to do was retool it a little bit to be more active on the part of the students and have them engage with each other.
Yeah, before we go to the next slide, I think we need to see if we can go back and stop sharing and reshare, because,
Okay, it's not sharing again?
yeah, it's doing something weird.
I don't know if it's just my terminal or if it's everyone, but I can't even tell because I can't chat with anybody. See the video? Yeah, close that. Hide. There we go.
So that's, if I go back to,
Technology is great.
sorry about that. Back to normal now. Okay, so that was version 1 of the game. We decided to change it around after we tested that actually in a couple sections. And like I said, it was engaging, but we wanted it to be more active on the part of the students. So the second attempt at the game, the next version, we decided to take away the cards because that kind of made it too individualistic. We decided to make it team-based, where I put the students in groups of 4 or 5. And then we added the point system, and I'll show you how that breaks down in a moment. And what that did was help promote the use of the harder search operator. So that truncation one I showed you earlier, that's actually a harder skill than using something like the OR term. And what we found initially was that students wouldn't use the harder terms, or they would sort of avoid it. So we made the harder operators have a higher point value in order to encourage people to use those. So this second version had the effect that we wanted, which was much more engaging, much more active, and I would say that in cases where I've used it, it's gotten to be what I would call almost rowdy in class. We had one section that was, for whatever reason, there was a lot of athletes in there, and they just got really competitive with it, and were just, like I said, almost rowdy in class. So I mentioned that we did do some testing on the two versions of the game. So we had 3 sections do the first version, the one with the cards, and then we had them fill out a paper survey, and then we had, I think, one section do it once we revamped it, and also fill out the paper survey. So from the first version, the paper surveys, I have some data about that. 75% reported learning something, and by something I mean they kind of filled in the blanks. So they would write in things like they learned how to do search strategies better, they learned about search operators, things like that. But 75% said that they learned something from that first version. When we redid the second when we did the second version of the game, that amount of learning went up to 89%. So 89% reported learning something with the second version of the game. This is also from those surveys that we did in class. The best features of the second version, the things that were noted the most were the point system, the learning multiple strategies for searching, so like the reason behind the game, and then also the competition. So those are the things they liked the most. And then we asked for you to, what would you improve about the game? And they also said the point system. So some people were really, they didn't like that it was sort of weighted towards trying to use those harder operators. And then the other things that were cited were they wanted to see more competition and more playing time in class. And so those last 2 points I think are really indicative of how engaged they were in the game and how much students really liked to play it, because they wanted more time and they wanted it to be even more competitive. So I think that that second version really worked out well, the changes that we made. So that's sort of the background information about the game. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the actual game itself, and then we can try playing it in real time. We'll see how it works with the folks online, but we can give it a shot. So the goal behind the game is to creatively string together search terms in Lion Search, which is the library's online catalog, and one team at a time suggests a search term or a search operator that I've taught them, and we add that to the search. So we end up with like a one giant search sort of by the end. So we just keep adding these terms and sort of seeing how they affect the search results. If your team suggests something and it makes it returns 0 results, that sort of ends the round. So you don't want that to happen. But we do generally want to go to a smaller set of results. We don't want to make the results bigger. We want to make them into, ideally, a manageable amount of results, except for 0. So each team will give a search operator and maybe a search term, depending on what they choose to do. And another rule is that you can't do a back-to-back repeat of any search term or operator. So if one team picks the AND operator, the next team can't also pick AND. So this forces them to choose a variety of operators, because, like I said before, AND and OR are pretty easy concepts for them to get. So this forces them to use other things in the game. So this is the point system for the search operators. AND and OR, they're easy, so they only get 1 point for them. If they can do an exact phrase search with quotes around it, that's 5 points. If they can use the NOT search operator, that's 5 points as well. And then truncation, which is probably the hardest for them to do, is 10 points. And then using a date or a date range is 5 points. And then the win state is the team with the most points at the end of the game wins, so that's pretty easy. I do have them do this on the honor system. I don't keep track for them. I tell them they're on their own to keep track. And that's worked out fine for me. I haven't had a problem with that. So if you're ready to play this, we can. And since all of you may not be up on your Boolean searching, I can give you a brief primer on the search operators that we can use, and then we can actually play the game. So let me get out of here. Open up a browser. going to go to Lion Search. And this is, as I mentioned, this is the library's online catalog. It's similar to the CAT, if people know the CAT. This is sort of the CAT 2.0. And just to tell you a little bit, like I said, a little bit of a primer on the search operators that we're going to use. The first one is and. You put this between terms if you want to reduce your result set. So let me think of the example I want to use here. You might do something like the internet and privacy. So this will search for both terms. This really does it implicitly in the background, even if you don't type in and. That's not always true in every search engine, so it's kind of a good idea to get in the habit of just typing it in anyway.
It's true in Google, which is...
And Google will just do this in the background without you having to type in the word and. If you type it in all caps, though, that makes the system recognize it. So some, like I said, some search engines do this, some don't, but we do it here on purpose just to get people in the habit of thinking of it and using the operator. So that might be a search you would use and for. The next operator is or, and we saw that before on the cards. And the way I remember it is or gives you more. So if you want to expand your results, you would want to put or in all caps in between your search terms. And this is generally good for words that are synonyms. So like colleges and universities, if you want to make sure results have both those words in there because they're related to your search, you might use this example of using or between the search terms. So that's or. The next one I have is not. And this one you don't use all that much, but sometimes it's helpful. So not excludes a term from your search. So if you're getting results and there's like sort of erroneous things in there that you don't want, so maybe you're interested in something related to Asia, but you're getting all these, results specifically about China, and you're not interested in that country specifically. You're just interested in the region of Asia. You might try something like this, which is Asia, not, again in all caps, China. And that way the word China shouldn't appear in your results list. The next one is a phrase search. And I find that it's sort of 50-50 with this. Some students know this trick and some don't, and it's about half. And if you're looking for a particular phrase, basically anything more than 2 words, this is really effective. It will force the system to look for those words as a phrase and not separately. So No Child Left Behind, separately, if the system is looking for those 4 words, they're all very common words. If they appear anywhere in the item, in the record for that item, it'll bring it up as a result, but it's probably not going to be about this particular educational act. But as a phrase, No Child Left Behind is really meaningful. And so that's an example of something you might want to search for as a complete phrase. And this way the system is forced to look for those 4 words in that order. And that way you should get more relevant results. So that's the example of phrase searching. And then the last one that I have is just to use a date range. A lot of people don't do this, but it's really helpful to just simply add either a year, like 2012, if you want something from this year, or a date range. So you might do 2010, 12. So this will get you information from the last 2 years. And that's really important because students sometimes won't verify the year that the information is from. And so if it's something that's changing, you want to make sure that they have new information. And this way you'll only get information from the last 2 years. So that's just a really easy thing to do. It's kind of obvious, but I notice a lot of people don't do that in their searching. And I think that's a really effective way to make it more relevant, is to add the year. So that's the brief primer on the search operators. I would go through this in a little more detail with the class before we actually start the game, but I know you guys are all pros, so I won't bore you with all the details. So after I explain that, I would have the class I would have them seated probably in teams, and our classrooms kind of lend themselves to being seated in teams. And I would explain the game rules to them like I just did for you guys, tell them what we're going to do. We're going to string these search terms together using the different operators that I just told you about. You have the game rules. I have a sheet of paper that I hand out that has basic information, including the points system. And sometimes I ask, does anybody have a topic in mind that they want to do this game with? And that's always interesting to see what they come up with. And other times I supply the actual topic. So I've done it both ways. It's kind of fun to let them pick the topic sometimes if you don't mind releasing control a little bit. So the one I often use is about social media and privacy. So if that's the topic we're going to go for today, I would start by you have to start somewhere, so I usually just start by inputting one keyword to begin with, and then I would ask the next team, okay, how do you want to add to this? And in order to make, a better search, but one that's not going to equal 0 results. So does anybody either online or in this room want to offer up something that we might add to this search? We can go in many different directions. Yes?
But put that in quotes.
Yeah, exactly. So the suggestion was to put social media in quotes. So that's an example of phrase searching. And actually, let me back up a second and just show you how many results we get if we don't do that. Just so we have a baseline. Anybody in the chat is welcome to type in a suggestion. Uh-oh. That's not good.
Google?
You could.
Line search is better for getting academic things.
Yes. Although if it's not working. Okay.
It wants Google.
It wants Google. Okay, so we can do this in Google. All right, so let's just do social media as is, 500 billion results. Let's do a quote. And so what I'll do in the class too is I'll say, so what's this going to do to our results list? Is it going to make it less, or is it going to make it more? Okay, let's see. And so this should make it fewer, which it seemed to have, yes, it did. And then, so that team, or in this case, individual, would get, I think it's five points, yeah. So then I go on to the next team. Very good. Did anybody chat us?
Nope.
No. Feel free to chat us an option. Somebody want to go next? What else can we add to this search strategy for interested in social media and privacy? And what? Okay. So again, this should, bring our results down. We should have fewer results after this. So again, you can see the numbers slowly coming. It's still way more than we could ever possibly work with, but it's getting to be less. So we would just keep adding to this. Does anybody have other ideas? Anything you
Try YouTube.
want me to do?
The word in quotation.
You just say
Yeah.
and in quotes YouTube,
Yep. So wait, I should get.
like that?
Yep. I should get multiple points for that.
Yes. Okay, so it's bringing my results down. What else? We would just, in class, we would just basically keep going with this.
I guess, but YouTube and parentheses, and then you could say, or Facebook.
Well, yes, you are nesting, which is something that sometimes comes up in a class, not always. It's not something that I go into when I teach them the operators, but if it comes up, we sort of talk about it a little bit. So, because it's a little more complex, but you could do YouTube or Facebook. And I wasn't paying attention, not sure if that's less or more.
It is less.
Is it less?
I think they went up.
It may have gone up because
Yeah.
OR gives you more,
Back in the
but it's
day.
just that subset, so it's a little tricky to know exactly what
So-
it'll do there.
Ad and education. That should really narrow it down.
What else could we do besides education here? What other operator could we use that's a very high point value? You know what, I just realized I skipped over that, I'm sorry. So this is a good demonstration. So truncation, you can use it at the end of the root of the word. So that'll get you variations on the word. So if we do it like this, after the T, we would get educate, educates, education, educating, all those different variations on a word. So it actually expands your search to use it, and that way you don't have to worry about different word endings. Sometimes it helps if there's different spellings, like British or English variations on spelling. It can help with that. But in this case, we could use it to get those variations on education. And I think our results went up a little bit, so you can see how it expands your search a little bit more. Any other ideas? Didn't add a date range.
Ah. So,
Just 2012? Did one go up? In Google, it's a little different than something like Lion Search, where it's probably treating 2012 like a keyword. So anywhere 2012 is mentioned on a website, on a news article, something like that, it'll probably bring it up. Whereas in Lion Search, it'll treat it more like a limiter and look at when it was actually published, and less like a keyword. So that's maybe a little different in something like Google than compared to Lion Search. So it's interesting. I haven't actually done that comparison before with the date range. But I think you get the idea, right? Like, this is what we would do in class. A lot of this is new, especially for like a freshman. So they tell me things that are sort of nonsensical, and I have to kind of stop and say, like, we'll do it, and we're like, okay, why did that happen? Or, well, how can we make that better? Or, like, let's think about this. Why are you suggesting that? So it's really, to me, like a teachable moment at each step as to why they want to do that or why they don't. And like I said, after we enter it, we'll often say, take a look at the results. Okay, what did that do? Did it have the effect we wanted? If not, why? The nesting thing might come up. We could talk about that. But in general, I found it to be a really helpful thing. Like I said, the students get really competitive. At first, I don't think they totally understand the operators, but as we do it a couple times, they sort of catch on really quickly, and then they sort of definitely have it by the end. And then later on, when they're doing database searching, looking for actual articles and things like that, I do see them using it in class. So I think that's good.
So Nancy is asking, so you would wait, as here, to explain nesting until they wanted to use OR?
I wouldn't explain nesting until it came up. Like, I think it's sort of an advanced concept. So out of the gate, I don't explain nesting. But if someone wanted to do something like that, where it's a combination of words attached to it's sort of anding with those other terms, then it's kind of appropriate. But it doesn't always come up. It sort of depends on the class. Like, sometimes somebody will say, what if I want to do, this? And then it involves nesting. And then we'll probably talk about it. But it's something like I said, just right off the bat, it's not something I would explain because I feel like it's a little too complicated unless it sort of comes up.
At some point, we want to try and do the camera thing again and show the cards. That screen blocking it. So if we can try it again so everybody can go ahead and see those cards and sample cards.
Okay,
again.
do you want me to do that now?
I mean, it's up to you,
Sure.
where you want to take it.
Okay, try it again. We're gonna try showing the cards again.
If it doesn't show up this time, it might also be in the recording.
It's not showing up in the recording. That's what they were saying before. They had typed that, there's that blank box that was on my screen was
Mhm.
blocking the camera. So you only saw a thin sliver of it.
Okay.
So, I think if we just move that box this time. Okay, so take that video box and move it off to the side.
Over here?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes. No. I think I don't know why it's doing that. Do you see how it's...
I think it's because, I think we should stop sharing this and then.
Yes, there you go.
All right, then, start my
Share my
webcam.
webcam.
On the camera setup?
There we go.
Okay.
Now you can go ahead
All right.
and show off those cards.
So here's an example of, sorry, it's a little hard to navigate, truncate. So hopefully you guys can see that this is what the card looks like. It reminds them that they use it to get variations of a word, and then on the other side is actually an example of how they could use it in the search engine. So it's reminding them that it's the star symbol at the end of the word's root, and then there's an example there using child as the example. And then just to show you one other one, this is the OR operator, so OR gives you more results. And then on the other side, use the OR operator to allow either word to appear in your results, like colleges or universities, and then just a reminder to type it in all caps, so that the system recognizes it as a search operator, not just as a search term. So I have one of those for each search operator talked about. And then in this version too, we also had this card. It's your pick, and so it's kind of like a wild card. It was our version of the wild card. They could use and or exact phrase or truncate, and then again the back just gives a description about using any of them. So that's something that is different about the card version versus the team and point version. There isn't sort of everything is a wild card. I mean, they can pick whatever they want. So that allows them to kind of confer as a group and kind of reinforces the collaboration piece of the game, which is something we wanted to go after. Did anybody have any other questions about the game itself or the cards or any other specifics about the game?
I do, actually. I know that we piloted spring semester. Have you had a chance to run it this semester?
That reminds me of something. So I may do it tomorrow in a class that I have where the instructor doesn't have an assignment where they need resources, which is something we try and avoid having, but I suspect because Thanksgiving break is next week, that's why the students don't have an assignment coming up. So it's good for a class that isn't working towards a specific assignment or have very specialized needs for an assignment coming up. The other thing I've noticed is that it takes me about 15 minutes to explain the search operators and then do a round or two of the game. But for planning purposes, that's about how long you need. And in a 50-minute class, that's just too much time for a 50-minute class.
Okay.
But in a 75-minute class, this is definitely doable. So that's just something to be aware of. So for whatever reason, this semester I've had mostly the 50-minute class, so I haven't had much chance. But I may be doing it tomorrow for a class. So I'll see how that goes. Yeah, I've done it quite a few times, and like I said, I have had very positive feedback about it. So if you want to give it a try, feel free to contact me. I put Brett on here because he and I presented at the New Media Consortium conference on this, and I just really liked the avatars that he created for us. So I had to put them on there again. But Elizabeth or Chris Stubbs could also help with any questions about gaming or anything about this game. So I'd be happy to answer any questions either now, or if you want to contact me later, I'm happy to help anybody who wants to try this or has questions about it.
Right. And if you want to contact EGC, gaming@psu.edu is our email address.
No questions in the
No
chat?
questions on chat, of course.
Do you ever, I guess another question is, do you ever have any students who sort of resist at the beginning of the game?
Yeah, there's always going to be students that resist whatever you want to do. But I have noticed that some sort of like hang back from their team, like a little bit, and then as they sort of understand what's going on or understand the concepts better, will become more engaged. I think, at first, there's always a little bit of a, not slow start, but, you know what I mean, sort of ramping up, and then sort of once they catch on, they really seem to catch on, and then it's all green lights from there on, so.
Up on like a dicey search topic, get themselves in trouble or, but because there's like autocomplete. I think in Google, especially Google searches, they show up and sometimes.
Yeah.
That's my problem with that.
So,
It's really rowdy.
just to repeat the question was, is there ever a problem with sort of students choosing sort of dicey search terms or with autocomplete suggesting maybe ideas that you don't necessarily want? And I haven't had that happen so much. When I've asked students if for a topic of their own, sometimes the things they suggest are just more kind of silly rather than, like not things I wouldn't want to have them search on. Yeah, they're just more like, but the thing about the silly topics is that it still demonstrates the point, and it kind of is an icebreaker in that case. So even though like the one I always remember is some kid wanted to research Kentucky Fried Chicken, it may have been a legitimate topic because I think it was something related to like diabetes or something like that, but it was a little silly. But it still demonstrated the point of like, this is what happens if you add more search terms or this type of search term or this operator, so it was silly, but it worked kind of as an icebreaker. And then I think we did it again with a more serious topic.
Okay.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I can imagine that being a good one anyway, because they're different permutations.
And sometimes I'll just get suggestions from a team, like, I don't know if it's like there's sort of inside jokes in the class, or just like funny terms that they're almost nonsensical to me, like based on the topic. Like one time I forget what the topic was, but they wanted to know, the team suggested like adding the term Dr. Phil to it, and I don't know if there was a specific reason why, like maybe they had talked about it, or they could have been serious. Maybe Dr. Phil was related to something that they wanted to research. I don't know, but it's just kind of silly. But it's, like I said, it still demonstrates the point of like, okay, if we add this with an AND operator, for example, it's still going to cut down on results. But maybe it's going to cut it. Maybe that's too specific. you know, that sort of thing. So it's still kind of a teachable moment, even if they suggest silly things like that. Well, I guess if there aren't any other questions, we'll wrap this up.
Oh. Thanks everyone for coming. This is the last session of the seminar, and we held it the second week so as not to run into Thanksgiving. So we should have new sessions coming up next semester. Trying to get them in the works now. And again, if you have any questions, please drop a line to gaming@psu.edu. Looks like Donnie's typing it in.
And I'm horrible at typing gaming@psu.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
you.
We have to stop.
Yeah, stop recording.
I'm going to stop recording, and we're going to be here for a few minutes.